Hello and welcome to Church at Home with Rachael for Tuesday, the 31st of January. My name is Rachael Parker. My pronouns are she and her. I am an Anglican priest in the Diocese of Edmonton for the Anglican Church of Canada, and I serve as the rector or the priest responsible for Dayspring Ministries, a collaboration of three churches, St. Mary's Edgerton, St. Saviour's in Vermilion, and St. Thomas in Wainwright in the beautiful province of Alberta. I am going to talk today about what's happened and what is coming to light because of the death of Tyre Nichols. I don't want to speak specifically to his death or the incident of this, but something that has been on my mind for a long time, and something that I think we need to, as a society, face up to and begin to do something about. It's not about police brutality. That's a whole other topic we could get into, and we might someday. But I want to talk about racism. Growing up as a white kid mostly in southwestern Ontario in Canada, racism didn't affect me much, or I didn't think it did. Looking back, I can see that it should have. When I was in the third grade, we had two little girls from Pakistan in our class. One girl's name was Phoebe, and she was, the way our houses were, we were kind of all in a corner, a rounded corner, so her backyard was sort of adjacent to my backyard, and so I knew her sort of a little bit from the neighborhood, but she was in my class. And she dressed differently than we did, and she smelled different than we did, and she brought really different foods to school for lunch than we did. And at that time, it never occurred to me that there was something wrong with that. It was just Phoebe, and she came from a different place and had different stuff. And sometimes she'd eat my peanut butter sandwich, and she'd give me something that tasted really different. And it was, sometimes I liked it, sometimes I didn't. It was just a thing. Later, though, in life, as I moved on to different places and other situations, it occurred to me that maybe I should be thinking differently. When I was in grade 5, we moved to Hanover, close to where my parents grew up. And in my class, partway through the year, came a young boy, and he was from Germany. His family, he spoke German, like they had very little English, and he'd moved into our class, and I thought it was kind of cool. But it didn't take very long before other kids in my class started making me think differently. Like maybe I should be wary of this young man. Maybe I shouldn't trust him. Maybe I shouldn't play with him, because I was being lured by peer pressure, because this young man was from Germany, and there were a lot of people in my class whose probably their grandparents had been influenced and had fought in the war and still had very, very strong and wrong-minded attitudes about Germany itself and about the German people. This young man, I think we were 11 years old. He and his family had done nothing wrong, and yet they lasted only about 2 months in our community, and they moved out. It was unbearable for them to stay there. As I got older, I paid attention to things. We moved to places, like we moved to Niagara Falls and lived there for 5 years, we lived in the heart of an Italian neighborhood. It never occurred to me. They were just from a different country. Cool. But there were things that were said about other people. I had two friends. One of them was my friend in public school, and then she sort of drifted away, and then another one in high school. And Andrea, her family came from Bosnia, and so did my other friend Mila. But what I didn't realize was that Andrea was Muslim, and Mila was Christian, and never the two should meet. Their families hated each other. As a matter of fact, one of them went to a different high school than she normally should have, because her family didn't want her going to school with those people. It's pretty harsh, isn't it? As a teenager, I really didn't understand it, but later in life, I began to understand the lessons that we teach our children, the things that we don't allow them to learn because we're scared or we are uninformed. Racism is a thing, and it's not going away. The civil rights movement in the States and all around the world really raised attention and helped us recognize that other people who may look differently than we do, who may sound different than we do, who might have a cultural background different than we do, are still people. And yet there are many, many people in our worlds who absolutely refuse to believe that. I believe that every person, every human being was created in the image of God, and hence I cannot look down on another person, because if I do, then I'm looking down on God, and I can't do that. I understand there are times when I disagree with a person's politics. It happens a lot. I understand that I might disagree with the way their culture has taught them these are right things, right ways to live, that the rules or the structures of their culture are different than how I believe. Sometimes the way women are treated or the way children are treated, those are things. But those are not things that mean that those are evil people or that they are not people. Those are things that I need to learn to understand where they're coming from, and they need to learn where I'm coming from, and we can help to discover the best ways we can live. The best ways we can live, it may indeed be that people coming from other countries or other places having to learn the way we live, the way we treat women in the best of times, the way we treat children, the way we work, the attitudes that we have. It's pretty judgy, but yeah, I believe that my attitudes about women and children and the way we work and things like that are good attitudes. And so if I see someone who doesn't live to that standard, I have a problem with that. It's not their culture, it's not their skin color, their tone of voice. It's recognizing we come from different places and how can we find the best way for all of humanity to live. But there are a lot of people in the last probably 15 years who have become very boisterous about those people. I don't believe that we actually made as many strides as I thought we did during the last 40 or 50 or 60 years. I remember when Barack Obama was first, consecrated, that's a bishop thing, when he was first inaugurated as the President of the United States, and it was absolutely dumbfounded, that this man, this talented man who worked hard and did many good things and was legally elected president, was able to be the president, and then watched in horror as the outrage and the racism began to swell up and take things down. And it has not gotten better. It has gotten worse. And I know people, you're Canadian, you shouldn't speak to the American context. I'm speaking to my context. We may not have a lot of black people in my community that might feel that someone is being racist against them. But we do have Indigenous people. And I have had conversations in the last little while, and one in particular about a year and a half ago, that made me sick to my stomach. I can't stand hearing those words, those people. They don't really mean people. I don't believe that. I believe when someone says those people, they mean those things. They're not really thinking of them as people, or they wouldn't be able to speak the way they do. Indigenous people, black people, Hispanic people, Italian people, Dutch, Jewish people, gay people, trans people, you name it, women. We are people. If you cut us, we bleed. We get cancer and need help. We get headaches and we have ideas and dreams. We have all of the same things as every other human being. And yet some human beings believe that they are superior because of their gender, their color, their culture, their creed. That is nonsense. It is absolute horsepucky. We are created equal in the eyes of God. And we will never be able to raise up our children in a way that will bring hope and generosity and the gifts of goodness to our world if what we are teaching people is that other person is wrong, that other person is less than. And I really think it comes from fear. We fear what we do not know. We fear what the other person, those others, might do to us, might take our jobs, might. Maybe if we recognize that our fear is born of what we don't know, we might we might begin to understand that the best thing we can do is to get to know people. Sit down and break bread with them. Have a conversation. Ask them where they come from. Ask them what their hopes and dreams are. Ask them how they feel about their kids. Their teenage daughter who's just going through a hormonal craze and they just want to pull their hair out. Just like you when you deal with your teenage daughter. Maybe if we actually recognize that we don't know everything and it's the unknowing that scares us, we might be open up our minds and our hearts to recognizing that we need to ask questions and we need to learn and we need to begin to know the other person's context. If they could share with us, if we would allow them to share with us how they feel, how they're thinking, what their hopes and dreams are, what their fears of us are, we might be able to find a way to be human beings together. What is happening in Memphis, what has happened in Memphis, regardless of whether it was color or anything like that, this kind of brutality that people are feeling for another person, regardless of whether it's gender, creed, whatever it is, this kind of anger and hate has to stop. And it cannot stop as long as we perpetuate it. We need to learn to love. We need to learn to look at each other and see not someone to be scared of, but someone to learn about. I feel for the Nichols family. I feel for the people of Memphis and for every community in which someone feels like they have been othered. For every community in which people like me have othered another person. And so I would like to apologize if I have made another person feel like I have said that person or that they have been othered at any time in my life. I am sorry. And I am going to do better. And I invite you to think of who you may have othered yourself and find ways to do better yourself. Doing the right thing, creating a better society for our children, for the future, cannot start if we expect everybody else to do it. It has to start with us. And so today I start with me, and I invite you to start with you. Together, we can make our community, our communities, our countries better. But we have to start someplace, and it needs to start with us recognizing that hate and fear will never lead us forward. It'll only drag us back and push us down as we drag others back and push them down. Take some time today to think about how you can contribute to hope and health and new life. And if there's anything in your life that is pulling you back or pushing you down or making you pull back or push someone else down, let it go. Let it go. Have a good day. God bless you. And I will see you tomorrow for February. God bless.